This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruschi, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
Before there was a masked man on Nancy Guthrie's porch, there was preparation. Investigators have asked residents within 2 miles of Nancy's home now for surveillance footage covering a specific 32-day window, January 1st through February 2nd. But they didn't stop there. They flagged 2 narrow time frames within that window, January 11th from 9 p.m. to midnight and January 31st from 9:30 to 11 a.m. That's not a fishing expedition. That's an investigation that has some digital evidence pointing to specific moments and is looking for the visual confirmation. Robin Dreek, retired FBI Special Agent, Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, is with us. Robin, let's get into where this investigation is at now that we're getting into another week, entering week 3, asking neighbors for footage from that window, but specifically those specific spots. That's 3 weeks before the actual abduction. When we're looking at that and they're asking for that information from neighbors, very specific spots. What's that telling you about what they're specifically looking for and why?
Yeah, kind of like we cover with humans all the time is you baseline what normal looks like, you look for deviations and you zero in on the deviations and see what caused it. And so what most likely is going on is that they baseline what the electronics and digital footprint look like in that area, and they saw spikes, people's cell phones that were out of the unusual, or movements or activities that are out of the unusual. Again, areas that I'm not completely familiar with electronically, but there's something that deviated out of the norm during those times. And so now they're trying to cross-reference with other sources of information and data to kind of zero in on what caused this spike from the deviation.
Are they looking too narrow? I get, okay, let's look at these specific times. There's a reason they're asking for those times. I'm guessing it's because other devices may have shown somebody on them, and they're probably trying to figure out, well, is this a person of interest? We don't even know. There's literally a month of data. You're not going to expect every human being in the area to honestly look at their Ring cameras and parse it all out. That's for the experts to do as they go through it, and it's a lot of skimming through this. But that's so much information. Can it be done? Yes, but in a timely manner, not so well. And right now, where we're sitting without seemingly any leads or any real direction to where this is going, I didn't even say where do they begin. It's not like they're beginning. Where do they continue, I guess, to try and get some sort of traction, some sort of grip on this bar they're trying to hold on to or climb up that they just keep seeming to slip off of?
I think this is narrowing. I mean, the fact that they're actually looking for specific time frames and not broad blanking in it is a good sign to me. Now, whether it'll bear fruit or not is another thing, but they're seeing deviations from the norm. And I know law enforcement and the FBI is using AI. AI and its use came in after I retired from the Bureau, but I can only imagine by how I use it for different types of research and things. It's very easy to plug in massive data sets into AI and say, what is deviating from this norm based on this. They have their prompts worked out. And so they're going to have that flagged by the AI, and that creates the leads that are allowing them to go down. And they're overlapping those leads with periods of time that make sense. I mean, 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time, that makes sense for what we saw on that front porch. It's someone that has reps, someone who's at least slightly familiar with this, and they would have been case in a joint, case in a neighborhood. So it might not have been her house in particular. It might have been a couple of houses based on just other little data points we're getting in from other Ring cams and things like that. So I think this is a good sign that they are still moving in a direction, whether it flushes out a more narrow focus so they discover who this was and get actually a couple subjects that they want to look at closer, or it negates this data and says, no, this is erroneous data. We need to move on to another direction. I think they're looking at a lot of content right now, and because there's still a lot of leads coming in, but whether it's going to lead anywhere or not, don't know. But there's a lot of stuff they're working through, I think.
Do you feel that there's a sense of frustration at this point with the authorities? Because there certainly is with the public.
I think there's definitely a sense of frustration that we're seeing on media and social media from the public towards this. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so much conjecture going on, because anytime you don't have voice and information coming at you. It's filled with conjecture, which makes a lot of noise. And as we said last night, it's not a far leap. I love Tony's expression. It wasn't a far leap, but that far leap is way up here with all this cascading conjecture on top. But when you keep it at the base root level, I don't think, again, it's hard to place myself in those shoes because I'm not on the ground right there, but I've been part of these things with a lot of chaos around me. And the fact that I'm still seeing progress being made, I think at the granular level, at the boots on the ground level, they feel like they're making progress because they have something to do. Now, I do think the zone is flooded, to say the least, with a lot of extra resource for images, for making it look like we're working it. But the actual people on the ground doing things is probably a lot smaller than people would imagine, because at this point, you've done a lot of interviews, recanvassing. You're going to recanvass with they should be recanvassing with the same people that did the first one, so they understand context and baseline of that family they're talking to. And then on the digital side, it's not like you have 100 or 200 people, doing analysis. No, it's going to be a handful, a team that is used to doing this, done this a lot of times. They're waiting for results back from labs. They're plugging it into their algorithms, and they're getting things spit out, and then they're feeding it to the central hub of the beast that's working the investigation. So I think there's noise at the executive level from what we're seeing being presented to us, but most likely not at the ground level. There's probably frustration going on, the fact that they're being poked and prodded in different ways for different looks and images while they're still just trying to do the things that they think are important.
We've seen so many, people give their opinions on this, and that's really what a lot of this is basically opinion-based reporting for the most part in all this, because we don't have a lot to go on. And you see it run the gamut where it's, this person is really, they're experienced and they knew what they were doing and they were plotting and planning this for months on end. And then the other end of it, almost sometimes in the same breath, it's like, well, there is this guy who might be on someone else's camera over here that was, casing out their home too, or getting ready to break in, or maybe did break in, or this or that. I mean, it contradicts itself constantly, from like genius mastermind who's been like scoping out Nancy Guthrie forever, and now I'm going to get her, to, just kind of fly by night criminal, and she happened to be, the house that they landed on. Where do you think we're landing right now in terms of who is behind this? Obviously, we don't know, but what we do have is some behavior here. And obviously, there's been a lot of things that have come out, a lot of videos of, weird kind of suspicious behavior in neighborhoods. But again, we're talking a fairly populated place. There are burglaries. There are people that go and do this sort of stuff on a regular basis, and it's not just one person. Where do you think we're at in terms of understanding the level of experience this person had and the level of complexity of what occurred the night that Nancy disappeared?
I think at the base level with the investigators, it's pretty simple and easy. Because, again, every time there's a new theory thrown out there, I investigate it, I throw it down thoroughly in the way of, one, does it match intent? Because that is really the core when doing investigations and understanding people's motives, is what's the intent? And if the intent here was to profit from stealing something, getting something, or even hijacking her, the intent is financial. I ruled out the intent of being retribution anyway, because that's less than 3% of abductions are based on retribution. There's always a messaging that goes along with it. So anyone that's saying it's for retribution is it's debunked by the stats, right? And the same thing with all these other things, all these other conjectures coming out there. You just, you take it as, all right, let's explore it thoroughly, and then it just falls apart because it doesn't match intent. Actions need to match intent, and the intent is to profit. That's why this whole thing from the get-go I've been saying, and here is that the likelihood of this being abduction and kidnapping for ransom is so remotely low, because if the intent is ransom, they didn't make it easy to get the ransom. It makes no sense. I think everyone's going to be extremely underwhelmed about who this is when they finally catch them, because and also here's another incongruence, just talking about these incongruences. So they're processing a Range Rover. That's an expensive car. This dude in the video is wearing stuff from Walmart. Yeah. I really think there's a lot of data coming in that isn't matched. Because remember, when we have a confirmation bias of, we think everything we're going to see now is going to be related to the investigation. No, it's just probably people doing different things. So for an example, you got all these ring cams that are showing up some video of people doing odd things in the middle of the night with backpacks and round back to houses. I can tell you from 22 years of doing a lot of investigations and deep dives on human beings, everyone has secret place, meaning everyone has a part of their life that they're kind of ashamed of, that don't want to share the world, and they keep it hidden from the world. And you discover those things when you do deep dives. If anyone in the audience listening now has dealt with anyone with addictions, I can guarantee you people are doing strange things in the middle of the night to hide things from other people so they won't be found. So you don't know, in other words, when you're seeing strange things at night, you don't necessarily need to make the leap that it's related to the Guthrie abduction. It could just be someone hiding something from their own family that they're ashamed of too. So that's why I always use the word maybe. All right, so let's explore it. Let's see if it fits the intent and the actions, the motives, the research, and so get overlaps to flush it out. And then you do interviews, you do research, you try to match DNA, and then it's easy to discount people. That's why I think we're seeing a lot of people taken in and a lot of people released right now.
They mentioned something about, it's not too late to do the right thing.
Yeah, good video.
Do you think that whoever did this can have a moment of clarity and say, I need to step back from this and do the right thing? I need to do the right thing here. Does that happen?
Yeah, it does happen. It's not super common, but it does happen. I like, Savannah's video that she just came out with over the weekend, I thought was another good one. When you're left with nothing else and there's no avenue for a transactional interaction because it wasn't for ransom, and you're only left with an empathetic appeal, I say, why not? I mean, it costs you nothing to throw it out there. And if there's at least one other person in this person's life that is somewhat aware that there's been a change in their demeanor, change in their behavior, and they have any inkling of caring about another human being, what Savannah was doing in her language, she's demonstrating that I want to give you grace if you give me the opportunity to give you grace. Doesn't mean I don't judge you for going away to jail and all those things, but a lot of times when people are generally decent enough, they didn't intend to super bad things happen, and because there's a difference between robbing someone for profit and murdering someone. And even bad guys have a psychological switch that won't go over that thing. And if this person accidentally had a death on their hands, there's a lot of weight going on there that an empathetic appeal could help them rescue them from. In other words, we do it in interviewing all the time. If someone's looking over the edge, the great interviewer won't push them over and say, you did this, you're going away forever. The great interviewer say, hey, listen, bad things happen. Why don't you tell me your side of the story and we work through this together? And that's why you inspire people to do things that might not be in their best interest, but allow that weight to be lifted off their conscience. So she's appealing to the conscience of this individual or anyone in their life. Will it work? Maybe, maybe not. It also depends on whether they're listening or not, because you don't know where they are.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed that her video, I thought it was very much in line with kind of what we'd been talking about last week, of doing that, of appealing to the individual themselves, not in a monetary, not, hey, have $100,000 if you can turn them in. Obviously, if they did it, they're not going to go and collect their own reward, but to their own humanity of what we were talking about on Thursday or Friday of, if you're out there and you did this went horribly wrong, but you thought you were doing the right thing by providing for your family and you ended up accidentally killing a woman, or she died on your hands or whatever, and you don't want to be caught, you're not a monster. This looks monstrous, but you're probably not truly a monster. Try and come out and save what little bit of care or empathy that you may have with those that you love and that love you, and do the right thing here. If you're truly not a monster, because obviously you have those psychopaths, you got sociopaths that will do this with nothing. But if this was a B&E gone wrong because they thought they were providing for their people in the way that they thought was appropriate by stealing, they may, like I said, they may be horrified at this. They may be sitting there going, "Oh my God, I can't believe that this is where it's at right now." And I said it on Court TV the other night. I was basically mirroring what you had said of, if they're listening, because that was the question of, do you think they're listening right now? And I said, I do. And I think that there's only one way out of this. And that's going to be coming forward and saying, this is horrible. This is not how it should have been. This is not what should have happened. I'm wrong. It's that, or, basically a very dark existence in the future for whoever this is.
It's good messaging right there. The word you use, monster, is really good, because few, if any, people see themselves as monsters, even though their acts might be monstrous. And if all of a sudden the entire world is labeling you a monster and you're aware of it, that weighs extremely heavy for your own personal legacy, what your kids will know about your family, whatever it is that's involved in this person's life. And if there's a way to rescue you from the image of monster, even though there's consequences for your actions, some people do take up that mantle and want to do that. So I think that's why I think her messaging is good.
Well,
And so hopefully we'll see.
And opening the door to that. I mean, I see some comments here where it's like, or the guy's a sick pervert, or it's evil in the world. Yeah, guess what? Are you opening any doors by screaming that at the person? Is anyone opening the door to that person to come through and reveal what the hell happened to her by screaming, "You're a horrible sick pervert. You're an evil monster"? You're going to push them away to never come out of hiding.
It's
we need to be grown-ups and open the door to this, not because we're absolving them of it, but to look at it from a humanity way of, this is horrible.
I've interviewed a lot of people, and a lot of people that did really horrendous things. And in each case where I had to do an interview or an investigation, my main job was thinking in terms of, how can I inspire them, not convince them, manipulate them, or using subterfuge, deception, because it never works. Shields up, right? How can I inspire them to want to share information with me that might not be in their best interest, but in the greater best interest of all? And if I sit across the table from this is one of my mantras for everything I do, and judge them for who they are, the actions they take, they will never, ever in a million years confess, share information, partner with me on solving this, and take me down that road with them and understand what happened from their point of view so we can work through this. That is the mindset that all law enforcement, this is the mindset that all great interviewers in recruiters, that everyone uses, because the very, very, now I understand the inclination to do this because there is evil in the world and people do horrendous things and people are held accountable for their actions. But if you sit in judgment of the other person as you are bearing witness to them, I guarantee, from 22 years of reps doing this, they will shut up and you'll never know. And if your main goal is to discover where she is, I can guarantee you this: if you keep poking them and saying that they're a horrendous monster, what a horrible human being, you're going to go and burn in hell, you think they're going to share?
Exactly. That's not how you're going to. I mean, there is a time and a place for everything. And there's a time and a place for punishment and consequences to the actions. It's not at this moment. Right now, we're still trying to figure out where the hell this woman even is and if she's even alive, and screaming and going, "This is going to happen." I mean, I think it's like how so many of us are brought up with bad parenting, where it's just scream at them, scare the shit out of them, and that will make them like, does it ever really truly work? Do you ever really get where you want to go by that? No. But so many people just keep repeating it, and then it falls out into people's lives and how they handle the world and others around them. It's ineffective as shit, but it's like all that people know. And I get it. You want justice, and we will get there. But we have to take the right steps for us to get there. Otherwise, we may end up shutting somebody into a cave and we'll never hear from them again.
Yeah, and I love the comments. I'm sorry, I love the comments on TMZ. I can tell everyone right now, I very rarely go out on limbs and anything. I'm going on a limb right now. Stop watching TMZ.
Yeah.
It's a waste.
Can TMZ just shut up?
The information they're being provided is complete bunk. 100% BS, and it was never verified at the beginning. It matches nothing. Because remember, go on intent. If the intent is to make money and to do things right, or even they have knowledge on where she is, would you do it that way? It's not effective. In other words, this is some moron trying to get some celebrity notoriety by doing horrendous things and chuckling with them and their other weirdos in the basement of their mom's thing with underwear on their head or something.
Specifically underwear on their head. Wouldn't that be amazing if it turns out like some of the people who are sending the notes actually are wearing Hanes? You know, I'm going to go Hanes or Fruit of the Loom. What type do you think they're wearing on their head, Robin?
Remember that 16 Candles, Weird Science, all those movies from the 80s? That's what they were doing. They're hanging out in their mom's basement.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, let me ask this about that with TMZ and because it just... If these notes were not coming into TMZ, and maybe there are ransom notes coming in straight to the FBI or straight to the Pima County Sheriffs or straight to the family, and they're not being released. The only reason these things are being released is because they're coming through TMZ or to TMZ. If these same notes were coming to the FBI in those offices, do you think they'd be being publicized the way that they are?
No, unless the instructions
were to. Yeah.
Right. If instructions were to, and there's a sign of life. And then it would be up to the family. And believe me, if a direct dialogue with the family was coming out, you think Susanna Guthrie would be making the videos that she is?
Savannah? Yeah. No,
there's nothing coming in.
No, it just seems...
The guy in the front. So the guy in the front porch is not sophisticated enough to do any of these things.
Yeah.
I mean, just play it through. This guy is in hiding. That's why we can't find him. It's just pretty simple.
I want to talk one more piece about the something we've been talking about a little bit earlier. The $10 Walmart backpack, basically the holster that isn't even for the right gun that appears that he's carrying. I mean, this does not look like someone who's ever done anything like this before, or is very early in the process of learning. It's amateur hour. Maybe. But I mean, wouldn't you have the right holster? I mean, I guess, you can get a cheap backpack, but I don't know. Like, if you're gonna do this sort of shit, I would think maybe you'd have a holster that fit your weapon. I don't know.
Yeah, the gun thing was a real giveaway on the sophistication and the sadness of this individual. But on the Walmart side, I can honestly tell you, my last operation I did in the bureau before I retired, it was a deep undercover type thing I was doing, and I was going to be interacting with a nefarious character that I was trying to recruit from a hostile foreign country, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't want him to know who I was in any way, because I'm a kind of a public figure, and it'd be easy to match. I bought all my clothes, throwaway clothes, at Walmart. I only wore them once, and I threw them out after. And just talking about this, I can't remember if we did it on screen or off. I bought a cane. I actually walked with a cane when I did this operation too, so I could actually mask my gait that I use, because I have a very distinctive walk. Most people do. Mm-hmm. And so I actually walked with a cane and bought all my clothes from Walmart and then threw them all out right afterwards. So it's not uncommon to do that, but he seemed pretty comfortable in the clothes he was wearing.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't scream of, uber sophistication. I mean, the backpack, it'll hold up for that night. It's a Walmart. It may not last you more than the year, but it'll certainly hold up for the evening, I guess. But it doesn't speak of super. I don't know. To me, it screams of someone who. Just like, I'm going to go get my supplies real quick and try this out. I don't know. It wasn't
even all in black. I mean,
no. I mean, it looked reflective. I mean, it's like, what are you doing? Yeah.
It was, again, I think this is someone that did who knows? We'll find out when hopefully they catch him. But I think this is someone, from what we're seeing, it's a behavior pattern of some petty crimes, some petty intrusions, going for, some targeting from what he said. Also, when it comes to targeting, I did the research on this too. It's generally 1 to 2 degrees of separation from the main target. And so it wouldn't be anyone necessarily that worked in that house, but someone that knew of someone that worked in that house.
Probably worked on the house next door, and they pointed out that Savannah Guthrie's mom's house. So I know she's got a pool service, she has lawn service, and so imagine. So here you got guys that work on the house that do lawn service.
And so they go home at the end of the day and say, hey, how was your day? You know, to their family. So, oh, I worked on this house. Oh, really? Wow, that must be a really nice house. They tell a little bit about the house, and this 1 degree of separation takes note of that, makes a thing, makes a list of houses to check out based on where the lawn services people are. Again, so that way it masks them. No one's even aware that they're doing it. So that's typically how these things happen.
And do you think for 1 second anybody said, if this is our case here, that, oh, it's Savannah Guthrie's mom? I think that would make someone like this go, fuck no. I'm not going there. I don't want like NBC and the full force of the government going after me for a B&E. Like, let's not pick that one. Let's pick someone who ain't so like doesn't have notoriety. That's not the house you'd target unless you were going after this as a kidnapping for money, and clearly no one has come to cash in. So that's all bunk. Like, It's just, that's not what this case is. So what is going on over here? This to me seems like somebody who just said, it's $1 million house. She's probably got some stuff. We could probably make some money at the pawn shop or whatever. It wasn't, sense. It's Savannah Guthrie's. Oh, it's like, no, I don't think they had any clue or took it into consideration. One of the two.
And here's why you don't do that. So here's the intent. The intent is to make money and get away safe.
Yeah.
If you knew it was Savannah Guthrie's mom, it's threatening that safety aspect and getting away with it because it'd bring too much notoriety. I think a great example of why this falls in line is just look at the first person they picked up. I think he lived like 2 miles or 5 miles from her house. Mm-hmm. He's like, and when they put them, they're like, who's this? What's going on? What photos of this stuff? Remember, some people live in a microcosm of confirmation biases where Savannah Guthrie, who these people are. Mm-hmm. It's a very small population. Not everyone does. Yeah. And and also the houses in here, they are spread apart. Not a lot of people interact. As described by the neighbors. They know of who's might be here, there, and everywhere. But I mean, these are big pieces of property and kind of spread out. So.
Yeah, there's just so much. It's
not as complicated as people are trying to make it right now.
And I think that's the key to try to understanding this case is take all the noise out of it, and it becomes pretty simple to understand. It really does.
There's only a few new leads a day, if that, or every couple days.
If that. Yeah.
And every single pattern is still fitting a home invasion for robbery that had a panic escalation of some sort. 43 minutes in that house, something happened that was not part of that plan. And whether it was targeted because they're going for a piece of jewelry or something small that they noticed on something, or someone said, hey, when I worked on the yard last time, she had this beautiful necklace on. I don't know what it is. And, I don't know. I don't follow Savannah and her mom all that much. But it just fits the pattern of what typically happens, because that's what I do when I'm researching these things, when I'm doing my own investigations, when I was in and now is like anytime a theory comes up, all right, we accept it, we play it out, we look at the law of averages, we look at the stats, we look at the research, then we see if the patterns of behavior and the data that we have are supporting what it is or not, because there's always outliers. There would be if there weren't outliers, everything would be 0% or 100%. But there's always outliers. And so I'm always exploring, all right, is this case a case of an outlier? Mm-hmm. Nothing's fallen in place with that this is an outlier. Everything's fallen in place with if we are going down the road of most probable from cases in the past. And again, this is extremely unlikely as well, just because targeting an elderly woman at home at night is extremely unlikely. But if you were going to do that, here's the averages for that. So that's what I do. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Your thoughts in the comments, leave them for us on Substack and YouTube. The links are in the description. Let's talk about the investigation itself. Sheriff Chris Nanos told the Associated Press he made a mistake. He said this early on, releasing Nancy Guthrie's crime scene too early, then turned around and denied it to Fox News, just pretty much contradicting himself allegedly here. His own search helicopter was grounded for 3 hours because he demoted the pilot over a personal grudge. grudge, allegedly. His search teams contaminated their own evidence field by, now we're learning about discarding gloves in the same zone where the suspect may have dropped one. The co-founder of the forensic genealogy lab that helped identify Brian Kohberger even called Nanos' evidence handling decision devastating. And investigators inside the case have told reporters they don't know who's in charge. And the sheriff or the FBI, that's what we've been hearing from all sorts of reporting. This person saying that person saying this, and then everybody contradicting each other and saying, nope, none of that's true. So everything's at a complete stalemate of what exactly is going on. But I mean, walk me through, what the hell do you think is going on here with Nanos? Because I mean, at the beginning, he even said flat out, probably should have waited longer to relinquish Nancy Guthrie's home to her family after his detectives processed it. And then out, shortly after that to Fox News, to Matt Flynn, rejecting, was saying that, no, we did everything the way that we should have, basically. I'm paraphrasing there. You can't have it both ways. I don't know what the hell's happening here, and it's just statements. None of this actually leads to Nancy Guthrie's being found. But it's chaos and it's contradiction from the people who are supposed to be the grown-ups and in charge and have their shit together.
Sorry. I'm laughing because the expectation that public has on this is law enforcement having their shit together.
Yeah.
We want to believe that, Robin. We need to believe that.
So yeah, and that's why things like this continually erode public trust in organizations. But it looks pretty standard to me.
And here's a window into reality. Here's what we all think is happening. Yeah. Here's what's actually happening in investigations.
So there is one thing that on the outside looks like it's missing because of report, and that is a central point of thoughtfulness. But I don't know behind the scenes on what is going on. But what we're seeing with gloves being left on the ground, of the sheriff saying one thing, backtracking on another, and all these things. Yeah, I mean, we see it all the time. So understand this. This is actually a baseline for people on the inside working their own issues and working their own problems and having, I mean, just Nanos. And again, I'm not defending Nanos. I'm just kind of giving an optic of what's typically happening. So he's got personnel issues. That's typical.
I was going to say personality, but
it might be that too. But I mean, this is really typical. I mean, everyone listening and watching, just think to yourself: does anyone work in an organization where there's peace, love, and harmony, and everything's working fluidly, 100% effective, innovative every single day? Yeah. No. And when shit hits the fan, I tell you what, there is no standard operating procedure for chaos generally. Mm-hmm. When you have reps and experience, you now have a standard operating procedure for reps and experience. And Nanos, I did a deep dive again on him as well, going through publicly appointed people versus elected sheriffs and the credibility, not credibility, effectiveness, not effective. I mean, I've researched it all. Yeah. And it's pretty standard. And I'm not. It's not excusing because we're just seeing the garbage behind the scenes that we shouldn't see. Mm-hmm. And if they had a better person out front on this that could organize and take charge, and here's a great. There's been a few really good examples. I think one of the greatest people and spokesmen that I've seen in the last bunch of years for a situation that was kind of chaotic or could have been was the prison escapee in Pennsylvania. Cavalcanti, I think was his name. Boy, okay. Doing your show, Tony, I remember all these things. So Cavalcanti was his name. And he escaped. And this guy that did the spider walk up the wall to get out of the prison in Pennsylvania. Yeah. And what happened was the state police guy came in. He was in charge. And I'll tell you what, his press briefings were spot on, specific, articulate. Here's who I got appointed doing this, bringing in the feds on this, bringing in the experts on this. And every time someone's poking at him, he goes, yep, thought about that, doing this, this, and this, and this. I mean, he was very scripted, very fluid. He wasn't winging it. He wasn't overconfident because that's been, I think, Nanos's problem for himself. He gets in his own way, has been reported, and we've seen he gets a little overconfident with his reps. He's got reps. He's got a strong law enforcement background, which allows you to fall in love with your own voice sometimes, meaning he might not think he needs a loving critic to script him out, to do anything. And then
he's got a track record of not needing or thinking he doesn't need one.
Yeah, I know. I looked it up, and I agree. And what happens when you don't have the loving critic and you've never
never accepted one?
Yes, or accepted one. You fall in love with your own voice, and chaos ensues. But I think I'm still on the grassroots level, the investigative level. We're seeing leads, we're seeing actions and things because there is a direction for all the people doing this. In other words, he might be the mouthpiece at the center hub of the wheel, but I think the lead investigator, and the on-scene commander is not him. He's just a mouthpiece. Whoever's the on-scene commander, I think, has their crap more wired than Nanos does, because we're seeing all the tendrils that have all these responsibilities actually working and still making action. And regardless of whether the top dogs are getting along or not, the people at the grassroots, great example. I'm in the FBI. After 9/11, they're saying, the FBI and the CIA don't talk together and they need to do more collaboration, and there's friction like this. What a lot of bull. My executives might have issues, but me at the grassroots level where the investigations are happening, I work closely with CIA, DIA, NCIS, all the Five Eyes. There was never an issue I ever had with anyone I was working with, because at the street level, you're all on mission. And so I think, again, I'm glass half full on the grassroots guys actually doing the work in the field. But again, the translation that's going from there to public, I think, is where obviously it's getting all distorted and crapped on.
Yeah. Another big thing over the weekend, 16 gloves. Like, what?
Why? What? Did they all go to Walmart to the clearance section and pick up gloves and go, yeah, we can trash all this stuff?
It's, I don't know. When I was doing a piece on this earlier today, I said this seems to be systematic of a greater problem in our society. It's the lack of attention to detail, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. It seems to be a bridge too far for so many, and I don't know why. And the thing is, there's places in life where you can be more lax on that sort of thing. This isn't one of them. If you worked at the La Quinta and you were supposed to make sure the TVs worked in all the rooms and everybody had a remote and you screwed that up, forgivable. It's something that one, would expect when you go into your room that you're going to get it. But if you have to call the front desk and they have to fix it, or that's okay. There's more room for that there. Not here. You are investigating a missing woman, right. An elderly woman, in a situation where one of the key pieces of evidence that they may be looking for or looking at is a disposable rubber or latex glove, and you're going around the crime scene and you happen to have those gloves on as you're picking up shit. What the hell is going through someone's mind, whether they be at the very entry level of investigator on this, that's assisting in some way, shape, or form, to the very top? Why is anyone on that scale? Why is it crossing anyone's mind that when they're done with it, it's just let's slide that off, and let's end up having 16 of them littering a crime scene environment? I don't know. It baffles the mind, kind of, on like,
I shall demystify for you.
Please. Yeah.
It's horrendous, but predictable. So if you remember, what was the one of the other cases we covered, and they sent the evidence, FBI evidence people outside kicking the snow and they're wearing mittens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what happens. In the FBI, when you're an agent, your primary job is agent. I was special agent. I worked counterintelligence. I ran our behavioral team. All the things I did, aside from my own cases, were collateral duties. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is evidence response team working on ERT, it's a collateral duty that a lot of times our support employees will volunteer to do and get trained on, and some agents will get volunteered and trained on as well. In every office, there's only a very small handful of people that are actually trained to do evidence response and know how to handle, know chain of custody, and all these things. So what happens is when you have a big event like this, the people in charge of the field office will say, all hands on board, and they
Sure.
send all hands on board. And so all these people without training are going out doing evidence response and evidence collection. And they walk up with a big box of gloves. They say, everyone take a glove.
But Robin, I mean, if you go to work at McDonald's, you put a top on the hamburger, you put a bun on it, you don't throw it away. I mean, even if you are, maybe they're probably exactly right. It's the lack of supervision and leadership.
It's undertrained people asked to do a job that's outside of their normal daily activity with a lack of training, lack of supervision, a lack of follow-up. I mean, that's the leadership. That's what leadership is. You give guidance, you give mission statements, and then you supervise, and then you follow up. And so that's why you have 16 gloves laying around. Because
I mean, is it like one of those things where, like, if you were in that situation and you're like dealing with, like, why the hell are you thinking to yourself, well, I didn't specifically tell them not to throw the gloves on the ground. Maybe I should have done that. I mean, it's not like you shouldn't have to do that, but like maybe you have to do that because people are that stupid.
No, the likelihood of someone intentionally throwing gloves on the ground is slim to none.
What happens? The people, though. I mean,
well, you got a lot of people on site.
True.
Again, I'm not making an excuse for anyone. It's just I've been there doing these things.
Yeah.
And when you're carrying a lot of gear and your hands get sweaty in one pair of gloves, you switch the gloves out, you stuff them in your pocket, then you put another pair on.
Yeah.
One falls out of your pocket, you put one in another jacket pocket. And remember, if you're not used to doing certain things a certain way and having a habit, you're creating a new habit on the fly. You're creating new habits on the fly. You're doing stupid stuff. And this is why training, one of the things you do in training is develop habits for things like this. Without training, you're winging it, that's why you have missing gloves. Because even afterwards, I mean, my daughter's a nurse and she goes in the OR, and one of the big things she does as a tech in the OR is you got to account for all the instruments going in and all the instruments coming out. And they do it 3 times before they even close up. No one was doing that on gloves. No one was doing that on everything else. It's like there was no procedure, it looks like, in place for accounting for all these things that should be accounted for. 1 pair of gloves on, 1 pair of gloves out.
I mean, I get like accident, and I can forgive the accidental. It's just, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, if anybody is, true, just take a look at the video from there. It's a zoo. There's hundreds of people all over the place.
It's a show.
So the odds of them, some falling out of someone's pocket, I get that. It just seems like a lot. It seems like something like that should be very, very carefully done so you don't accidentally drop duplicate the same type of evidence we're looking for all over the crime scene. I don't know.
You guys, even on a basic human level, when you're outside walking around doing normal things, if you drop something a few times, don't you pick it up? I mean, are these just a bunch of litter bugs at this point? Because how many gloves did they find? Did you say it was like 20?
16.
16. That's a lot of gloves. That's a lot of people just losing stuff and not being observant of what they're looking at, of their area around them. And they're supposed to be looking for clues.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how they found the gloves too. Did they find the gloves because they're actually doing a final sweep and they actually picked them up, actually part of their final sweep and final procedure, and it was inflated like this? Or did they find the gloves because they thought it was another sweep came through and they thought it was part of, and they thought, so again, we lack context. In how these things happen. It's hard. It's hard.
Speaking of the gloves, they have, and I'm trying to deliver this as accurately as I can because there's so much conflicting reporting on it. So if what I'm about to say is off a little bit, I apologize, because you have some reports saying this and some reports saying that. They have a glove. Now, which glove this is exactly, I'm not entirely sure on. I've heard reports that there was a glove in the house. I've seen reports it was one that was found 2 miles away. The FBI has a glove, or Nanos had a glove that they believe, so regardless of where it was found, that they believe is attached to the guy on the doorbell video. What we understand is that Nanos had sent that off to a private lab in Florida that they've already contracted with, and this is normal. It's not everything. Not everything that goes through law enforcement goes to Quantico to there. Local sheriff's departments, they have their own private labs they contract through. This exists. This is not crazy. And Nanos sent it there. There's conflicting reports of that. There's conflicting reports saying the FBI wanted it here, and then there's conflicting reports saying that he sent it before anybody asked for it over there. So however the hell this all happened, it didn't end up at Quantico first. It ended up at the Florida lab. Let's talk about that, because obviously time is of the essence here. They need to try and figure out this out. They need to get this DNA into CODIS to see if there's a match of some sort. Hopefully it's there by this morning, and we may have we don't know if we're going to get a match. There may be nothing that shows up, but it's taken now. We're going on week 3 of all of this. Can you speak to that and this chaos here of what went down with this glove going to the Florida lab, where it should have gone to Quantico, or maybe it shouldn't have? Because again, the reporting's been everywhere on what happened here and what should have happened.
I don't know the timeline of when the Bureau became involved compared to when they found that glove. And from what I understand, the truth of it is about 2 miles down the road, off the side of the road, and it matches of the visual description of the glove at the front door. And they're testing it for DNA to see if it's a match. That's the way I understand it as of right now. Nanos's decision to send it down to his contracted lab in Florida, again, I will go glass half full with no intent to roadblock. Because remember, it wouldn't make sense for him to do something to get in the way of the FBI intentionally, because at this point, he wants to be reelected. I mean, always go back to what is in his best, because people always act in their own best interest in terms of what they think is their best chances of prosperity. Him intentionally roadblocking, stonewalling the FBI makes no sense for him to do whatsoever, especially since there's been no reported grudge. There's no problems or issues. We're not getting any sense of that except conjecture maybe. Yeah. And so part of his reps when doing investigations is to move as fast as possible, send it down to his lab. I think he was just in rep mode without thinking mode. And so his rep was to get it in a box, get it, whatever, they send it off. And all of a sudden the FBI says, hey, send it to us. And we're like, oops. That's the best. My conjecture on that was good intentions. Should have opened your eyes a little bit faster to see other options available to you. Yeah,
I mean, if that's the timeline, this is our speculation on the timeline. Yeah, we don't know because nobody does truly, because one report will say this, and then you'll have one person on the inside say it's everywhere. But yeah, I mean, once he sent it off, he sent it off. It's going where it's going. And early on, the FBI was not involved in this in the first little bit of time. And then we hear conflicting reports of the FBI wasn't called in. They had to kind of pressure their way in. And then we hear reports that he did call it. So everything is like nobody's accountable for anything in this, apparently. Nobody is right or wrong. Everything is just out in the ether. So if in theory, at the beginning, it's early on, and he should have called the FBI immediately, but did not. He may have been thinking at that moment in time, if you're going through the prism at that second, that, okay, we already have other pieces of the crime scene being processed over here. We're gonna keep sending it there, and wasn't thinking the FBI was even going to get involved. Now, was that a complete error on his part and very narrow-minded, blinders on thinking? 1,000%. And can he be criticized for that? 1,000%. But is it in terms of like nefarious, let's block the FBI? No, I don't think so. I just feel like this guy is constantly tripping over his own decisions because he's not thinking enough out there about the cause and effect and one or two steps down the road. It seems to be a lot about right here and now.
Yeah, and some of the comments, still laughing at some of the comments. It's a clown show out there. Yeah, it is.
Feels like it.
He, again, you see data points on him, being Nanos, having reps in his own confidence in himself to do this investigation on his own, because he's been doing it. I mean, what was it? Early 2000s, he came into law enforcement and he rose up through the ranks. I mean, so he's got reps doing this, and he's got a lot of confidence in him and his people from his behavior. And he didn't think, again, I'm conjecture, didn't think it was going to reach this level this rapidly and turn into chaos. Most likely because, again, elected officials want to get reelected. If he could do it all over again a different way, I'm guessing he probably would have. But it's caused a lot of chaos along the way.
The confidence of the incompetent is one of the most damaging things in 100%. Any investigation. And I wonder if that's what we're seeing. Your thoughts in the comments section on Substack and YouTube on this portion of the conversation. Love to get it. We've talked about the suspect. We've talked about the investigative failures. Now we need to talk about where this actually goes. That male DNA profile from the glove that matches or may match a suspect. We don't know. And if it's going to be in CODIS's system, they're looking at that. The FBI Cellular Analysis Survey team has been mapping now apparently every phone that pinged towers near Nancy Guthrie's home during the relevant time windows. We got the Walmart purchase records that I'm sure are going to be looked at right now for those backpacks. Robin Drake, retired FBI special agent, chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, is with us to keep breaking this down. When we're looking at this, Nanos has confirmed that investigators, they've taken cheek swabs from different individuals that they've talked to along the way, meaning they have some DNA samples from people of interest. That could show something. What are we looking for here in terms of finding solid evidence at this point? And let's go back to that glove for a moment that, from what we understood, matches the physical description of the glove that was worn on that video. That's a pretty broad brush to paint with. The matches the physical. It was a black and white, and it appeared there was some sort of latex or rubber texture over another glove. I don't know how exactly you go 2 miles down the road and go, this must be it. I mean, and how do we know how do we know its value? How do we know that one that was found 2 miles down the road is the one that needs to be sent to CODIS? Why is that one more valuable than the other 16? I mean, I guess you could figure like, oh, these ones were the ones we bought to look around. But so it's a glove that doesn't match the ones the investigators were using. Is that it? Is that what well, it's not the one the investigators are using, and it was in 2 mile radius of the house, a rubber glove on the side of the road.
So that's the part. So it's those little data points that are keeping me on the glass half full side of this. So just the way you described it, Tony, isn't it amazing that they found the glove 2 miles down the road? I
don't know, Robin, because I feel like you and me could go for a walk right now and probably find a handful of rubber gloves at any random time. Just going for a walk for a few miles.
So here's what they're doing, from what I understand, is, and so this, what they're doing is, remember, we have what I call circles of investigation. I use my visuals all the time. We've got circles of investigation. We've got the digital forensic evidence over here. We got cell phone data towers over here. And so out of these things, they're identifying groups or clusters of what normal looks like, and they're zeroing in on things that are out of the norm, right? So abnormal cell phone ping or abnormal something over on the digital side. And now what they're trying to do to narrow this down is, from what I understand, we have a glove, we have a description, we have DNA of Nancy, we've ruled out other people, family, but from what I understand, they've said they have unidentified DNA inside the house. They have a glove that they think is potentially tied to him based on description. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to see if there's DNA on the glove that matches the DNA in the house. And then we're going to see if we pop up anything in CODIS, even a small group of people, and then they're going to overlay that, see where the Venn diagram, the concentric circles, if it overlaps with any of the other digital stuff. That's what they're doing right now, and that's why the DNA is it's an element. But if you bring all these elements together, you get all these intersections, and that's where they're going to find us. So I was really thinking about this a lot too. Someone saying, well, he's wearing rubber gloves. How do you get DNA in a house? How do you get it on the glove? Here's a potential for this. It could be anything else, and without her even struggling, because we don't want to go down the horrendous area of her struggling or whatever.
We don't know.
But here's where you could actually have DNA. DNA is also in saliva. And the guy was wearing and using one of those light,
Those bite
lights, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be saliva on the bite light. He's taking that thing out of his mouth with that rubber glove. There's going to be saliva on the glove. If he's inside the house, he's going to be excreting things and bodily fluids from things that aren't covered, like mouth, eyes, and they're going to get on gloves. And so if you have a glove that has it and they're able to find that sort of DNA at the house or something, because especially think about this. Here's an elderly woman. He's inside the house. He's wearing all these things. You think he's sweating? Do you think there's going to be a lot of potential, I think, of being able to get DNA that they're saying they got that doesn't match inside the house that could also be on that glove. I think that's going to be a potential overlap.
It's a lot of intersections that behind the scenes. Yeah, that they're looking for here to cross paths. And when you have several intersections and you can pin it down, oh, well, this is the same person who is pinging on the cell tower over here as the same person who made this purchase at Walmart for this backpack, and maybe the light or whatever else they may have, maybe a holster. When you can have this intersection, then you have kind of you got somebody, at least somebody of interest that you can look at, and you can go there further, then look at their devices, look at their things and see if more of that matches up. But trying to get down to that level it's time consuming behind the scenes right now in terms of what they're looking for. Let's talk about the backpack purchase. And the personality, or what we understand of the individual here that was doing this. If the person who showed up was not prepared for this camera being there. I do not understand anyone's argument saying he knew it was there. He was prepared. He's grabbing foliage after he turns around to cover the freaking camera. He wasn't prepared for the camera. If he was prepared for the camera, he would have been ready to cover the camera. People are telling themselves this shit, and I don't even understand why. It doesn't make any sense. So he's not prepared for the camera. Do you think this would be someone who is prepared enough to buy his backpack, buy his chew light, or what was it called? The white light. That's a thing?
Yeah. It is. Yeah. You clamp down on it to turn it on.
Okay. It's like one you wear on your head, but in your mouth, essentially.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. I learned something new today.
I looked that up too.
Yeah. So that, because I'm going to guess, do you think this person was smart enough to make these purchases at separate locations?
Nope.
Or do you think he went to Walmart and the chew light and the backpack, maybe the jacket, other items? And if you can find that purchase receipt that has all of that on it, that's an interesting one to look at right there, if you can figure out who it was that purchased it. And I'm wondering if they were smart enough to not do it on a credit card or on a camera or something where it could be traced back. That's an interesting thing right there. How much do you think they're dissecting the purchase history right now through Walmart receipts, trying to identify this guy?
100%, which is one of the easier things to do, time consuming. But so here's what you do at Walmart. You just go through and you identify in their database. Again, never worked with Walmart, but I can imagine they can, with some effort, come through the local Walmarts in that area, or probably one, that these things were purchased on a very specific day, and then you just have to run back the camera footage for that day of where those, there's a way to do that, so you cross-reference. Hopefully they stored that video footage from their surveillance cameras inside the store. That'll also give you leads. And one more point to this.
Yeah.
I think what's really, really important about all these investigative tips and things they're doing, and there's a lot of big leaps that have to happen for it to be successful in identifying a sole individual. But every time just think about this. If you're the person that did this and you're watching the news and you see another thing they're finding, the pressure of being found and discovered mounts and mounts and mounts. And then the need to want to grab hold of a lifeline of grace becomes more and more and more. That's why, as the pressures are being applied on one end, that we're closing in, that need and desire for some to reach out, either turn them in or turn themselves in, becomes even more, because you're afraid of just drowning under all the pressure. That has happened a lot as well.
Does a retailer like and I should know that. Actually, I know someone who works in the security end of Walmart.
There you go.
I was just on Walmart's campus yesterday, on their giant one here in town, because I'm where Walmart is headquartered. I would assume, and maybe you can speak to this, Walmart or insert large corporation, retail corporation here. I'm assuming they have reps in this sort of thing where the FBI or sheriffs or whoever comes to them and say, we're looking for a receipt here. We're looking for someone who may have purchased these items in one specific time in this specific area, where they could kind of snap into that and maybe find that information. I would assume there's some reps there. This isn't a crazy request, is it?
I don't think so. I mean, because when you scan things in, to purchase them, unless he shoplifted them, I mean, that's a possibility as well.
True.
But if he didn't shoplift them and he purchased them, the probability of him purchasing them all at once, pretty high, I would suspect, because they didn't look worn, they didn't look used. It looked like they were pretty fairly new. That was one of my first observations when I saw that first video. And they might have been a one-time purchase just for this thing, trying to be smart, thinking he's himself smart, not thinking it's going to go the direction it did. And so the likelihood, I think there's more than a 50-50 chance of the likelihood they were purchased at the same time. And then Walmart being able to see that on a store receipt in their database of purchases should be pretty big, because all purchases get clumped together, and so there, if you just have that, I mean, what's the probability that backpack, that ski mask, and what was the other, and a mouth light, and that mouth light might have been different, but at least the backpack and a ski mask and gloves, if the gloves are purchased there, or the jacket, any of those things,
that combination of items in one. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're trying to identify, because they seem to not have any clue who this person is, obviously, as of right now. Could the answer end up being on a Walmart security camera checking out? I mean, because look, when you check out at a Walmart, if he didn't steal the shit, even if he did steal the stuff, there's still cameras everywhere. But if you purchased that stuff in person or at a self-checkout, and if you had it delivered, even worse, he's going to be on there, unless he's wearing a ski mask into the Walmart, which I'm highly doubtful that they did. You're going to be able to narrow that down. Now, nationwide, who would have purchased those items simultaneously? You probably got a handful. You narrow that down to a more specific area, a more specific time window. You have fewer people. You go even smaller, down to just that general Tucson area. You probably got one. You probably got one that actually fits that combination of purchase history. And I think that might be the person where we could figure out who this person is, what they look like, if there's a credit card involved in the purchase. A lot of the self-checkouts, if you did a self-checkout, they don't even accept cash anymore. I would think the closest and quickest way maybe to find this individual is to go to Walmart and start looking through the security footage of who bought this combination of items. And start there, 100%. If they're not already doing it.
Especially because what they're going to do is they're going to work with the most likely probability, since they're already looking at people looking at their Nest cameras and Ring cams for the last 3 weeks during these time periods. Same thing, for the last 3 weeks, that's the first Walmart purchases I would go in to help them zero down. And I do it in the immediate area, within a probably 100-mile radius of her house.
Interesting. I got a friend who works in that part of Walmart corporately. And I just thought of that right now as we're talking. I'm going to send a text out after this. They were former law enforcement and moved over to that. That would be very interesting. Other than the Walmart, what else? The phone information. That's another piece right there, because that's what you do. You take the receipt. You decide, okay, this person. Let's check the cell towers now. Does this person, if you can identify who that is, does their cell phone ping on the towers that night? Then you got even more odds. Again, intersections, crossing, and trying to figure out who it is. Is there anything else they might be looking at right now, trying to make that intersection of who this is to identify a pattern of behavior, a pattern of who this could possibly be?
That's what I'd be doing. And on the cell phone, there's a high probability also that it's not actually a Verizon standard cell phone like a lot of people have. It might have just been a burner phone, because if people that don't have a lot of money, they're using just burner phones. And so where would you get that burner phone? Walmart. I would actually add that to the list of cell phone purchases from places like Walmart. Yep. And so if you have I'd be looking for backpack, cell phone, and ski mask, and put that. There's not a lot of people going to be purchasing that all at one time.
That's kind of one of those where if you're like checking out and you're going to a real checker, they're like, what you got going on, buddy?
Who was it? You know,
Brian Walsh.
Yeah, with walking out of
Home
Home
Depot.
Depot with all the cleaning supplies to clean up the bloody mess in his house. And like, I would stop that guy and say, "What's that for?" Especially what's the temperature this year? I don't know what temperature right around now in Tucson is, but you know, buying a ski mask, in the middle of a do they even sell them there? I don't know.
I wonder. I mean, I that's a good question. I'd be seeing, number one, do they sell them there? And if they don't, I'd be going to like every sporting goood store around.
It's a very unique ski mask too. I do a lot of rucking outside. I do a lot of outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
And the biggest covering I have at least leaves my face out. Actually having the Spider-Man kind of face mask, ski mask, that's extremely rare these days that people generally don't purchase or have. You might even be able to just do a search. Who in the entire country has bought this ski mask? And you're probably going to have 5.
We got to 20 below here a couple weeks ago, and I didn't even have something on like that. And I do own it. So a scarf was enough, you know, so that's pretty deliberate to be purchasing something like that.
It's a good choice to cover as much as you can, but at the same time, it's an unusual purchase. So it's going to stand out. I think there's a lot of, that's why it's still hopeful right now, because there's a lot of things that are standing out that they can. I want to see me in a ski mask. Well, I don't have it here. I used to have my Batman mask.
It'd be really disturbing if you just had it right there. Like, here it is.
That's the story.
You probably going for it. When I used to have my desk behind me, I actually have one of those Batman masks I put on.
Next time. Next time, be prepared.
There's a lot of data points that they're still flushing out. That's why. And someone made the comment easier: how long before it becomes a cold case? Typically, what happens is something becomes a cold case when there's no longer leads to follow up on. There's still a lot of work to be done that they are doing on this case right now. We're a long way off, I think, from being a cold case.
Yeah,
doesn't mean we're closer to finding the person, but there's still a lot of work being done.
Let me ask one more question before we wrap up. Nanos made the statement over the weekend. Could be months, could be weeks, could be years before. And I mean, I get it. In reality, it could be. Well, what does that tell you about the state of the investigation that he's throwing that random shit out there? Is it just diarrhea of the mouth, which he seems to have sometimes, or is that a verbal leakage on the state of the investigation?
It's interesting with him. I see the attempt of transparency and genuineness and sincerity with what he's trying to say. At the same time, he shouldn't be saying it. It's like he needs a bit of a filter, obviously. But he's true. He's saying something very correct. It could be happening tomorrow, but he doesn't want to pin himself down on tomorrow in case it goes into years and never find him. So he's trying not to pin himself. And doesn't sound like a politician.
It does. It's just like
he's an elected official. Elected officials, don't lock themselves into one thing. Yeah, we're going to solve this tomorrow, or it could be never.
I mean, there's a big difference between an elected official and someone who is there just because they want to be, because, and the motivations and all that prism, it all is a big thing. Fascinating conversation. Walmart, start searching your shit because that may be the, honest to God, maybe where we're going to, I would not be surprised. Are you going to be surprised if in a day or two we have a Walmart purchase camera video that's released that shows this guy close up? I'm not.
Well, think about it. I wonder in the last 3 weeks, from whatever time frame the FBI wants to give it, that they think this was happening in that time period, how many of those color Ozarks were purchased at Walmart? It can't be in the thousands.
No, there's a number. I mean, and geographically even lower.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows? I mean, they could corporately search that. I mean, there's a way to do it. I know.
He could have gotten it from another source, just because it came from Walmart doesn't mean he bought it there. But again, if you're looking for more data points to explore, I think they're certainly there.
That definitely is one. Everybody's thoughts in the comments. Look forward to reading them and continuing on our conversation there. Substack or YouTube, Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Search that and you will find us. And be sure to press subscribe wherever you're downloading podcasts so you don't miss any of our coverage of this and the many cases that we're following for you right here. All right. Until next time, for Rob and for Stacy, for Todd, I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.